Many English learners speak in a very formal and bookish way because that is how they were taught in school. Textbooks focus heavily on correct grammar, complete sentence structures, and advanced vocabulary. As a result, learners believe that speaking good English means using long sentences and difficult words. However, native speakers rarely talk like that in real life. When someone says, "I would like to request you to provide me with some information," it may be grammatically perfect, but it sounds unnatural in daily conversation. A native speaker would simply say, "Can you tell me about this?" Using bookish sentences makes speech sound stiff and robotic because real conversations are fast, casual, and simple. Native speakers prefer short, clear expressions that save time and effort. They often drop unnecessary words and choose phrases that feel easy to say. For example, instead of saying, "I am not able to understand what you are trying to say," they would say, "I don't get it." These shorter expressions help conversations flow naturally and make the speaker sound more confident and relaxed. When learners use overly formal language, listeners may feel distance rather than connection. Another problem with bookish sentences is that they increase fear and hesitation. Long, complex sentences require more thinking, which causes pauses and nervousness. Many learners start translating from their first language into English, searching for perfect words, and this slows them down. Simple spoken English removes this pressure. Saying "I'm tired" is much easier and faster than saying "I am feeling a sense of exhaustion at the moment." The simpler sentence allows the speaker to focus on communication instead of correctness. Native speakers also use contractions in formal phrases, an everyday vocabulary that textbooks often ignore. Words like gonna, wanna, kind of, and a bit are common in speech, even though learners are told to avoid them. When learners continue using formal alternatives, their speech sounds unnatural and old-fashioned. Learning natural phrases helps English feel like a living language rather than a subject to be tested. By reducing formality and choosing simple, spoken expressions, learners sound more human and approachable. Communication becomes smoother, faster, and more enjoyable for both the speaker and the listener. And English starts to feel natural instead of forced. Many English learners believe that speaking correctly means focusing mainly on grammar rules. But native speakers do not think this way when they talk. In real conversations, people care more about how something sounds than whether every sentence follows perfect grammatical structure. Native speakers often make small grammar mistakes, change sentence order, or leave sentences unfinished, yet they still sound natural and confident. This is because communication depends more on pronunciation, rhythm, and flow than on strict grammatical accuracy. When learners focus too much on grammar, their speech becomes slow and unnatural. They pause frequently to think about tenses, prepositions, and sentence structure, which breaks the natural rhythm of conversation. Native speakers, on the other hand, speak smoothly, connecting words together and stressing only the important parts of a sentence. For example, instead of clearly pronouncing every word, they blend sounds and reduce weaker words. This creates a musical rhythm that makes speech easy to follow. Without this rhythm, even grammatically correct English can sound robotic. Pronunciation plays a major role in sounding natural. Saying the right word with the wrong stress can confuse listeners more than using the wrong tense. For example, stressing the wrong syllable in a word or pronouncing each word too clearly can make speech sound unnatural. Native speakers use stress to highlight meaning, raising their voice on important words and softening less important ones. This helps listeners understand the message quickly, even if the sentence is not perfect. Tone and intonation also carry emotion and meaning. Native speakers change their pitch to show interest, surprise, agreement, or doubt. A simple sentence like "really" can have many meanings depending on tone. Learners who speak in a flat, monotone voice may sound bored or unfriendly without meaning to by focusing on how their voice rises and falls. Learners can make their speech sound more engaging and natural. When learners shift their attention from grammar rules to how English sounds, they begin to speak more freely and confidently. Mistakes become less frightening, and communication becomes the main goal. Over time, grammar improves naturally through exposure and practice. But natural sound is what makes speech feel real and human. Many English learners study vocabulary by memorizing long lists of words, often choosing formal or advanced terms because they believe these words make them sound intelligent. However, native speakers usually rely on common, everyday expressions that are simple, flexible, and easy to understand. These expressions are used repeatedly in daily life, which makes conversations feel natural and comfortable. When learners avoid these common phrases and instead use rare or formal alternatives, their speech can sound unnatural and distant. Everyday expressions are short phrases that native speakers use automatically without thinking. Phrases like that, "sounds good," "I'm not sure," "it depends," or "no problem" appear in almost every conversation. These expressions help conversations move smoothly and quickly. If a learner replaces "no problem" with "there is no issue at all," the meaning stays the same, but the natural flow disappears. Native speakers choose efficiency and familiarity over complexity because it feels more human. Using common expressions also helps learners respond faster in real conversations. There is little time to think deeply before answering. Native speakers rely on ready-made phrases stored in their memory. Learners who try to create original, grammatically perfect sentences often hesitate, which makes conversations awkward. Knowing common expressions allows learners to respond confidently and stay engaged in the conversation without fear of making mistakes. Another advantage of everyday expressions is that they help learners understand native speakers better. When learners are familiar with commonly used phrases, movies, podcasts, and real conversations become easier to follow. Instead of translating word by word, learners begin to recognize entire phrases as single units of meaning. This improves listening skills and builds natural speaking habits at the same time. Common expressions also reflect culture and emotion. Phrases like "I'm good," "fair enough," or "that works for me" carry social meaning that goes beyond dictionary definitions. Using them correctly helps learners sound polite, friendly, and socially aware. When learners begin to use these expressions naturally, English stops feeling like a foreign language and starts feeling like a tool for real connection. Many English learners speak in a flat and neutral voice because they focus only on choosing the correct words. While the words may be right, the lack of emotion makes the speech sound lifeless and mechanical. Native speakers naturally change their voice to express feelings such as excitement, surprise, doubt, or friendliness. This variation in tone and intonation is what brings language to life and makes conversations interesting. Without emotion, even simple sentences can sound rude, bored, or unnatural. Intonation plays a key role in how meaning is understood. Native speakers raise and lower their voice, depending on what they want to express. A rising tone can show a question or surprise, while a falling tone can show certainty or completion. For example, the sentence "I didn't know" that can sound curious, impressed, or uninterested depending on how it is said. Learners who use the same tone for every sentence may be misunderstood, even if their grammar is correct. Emotion in speech also helps create connection. When people talk, they listen not only to words but also to feelings. A warm tone makes a speaker sound friendly and open, while a cold or flat tone can create distance. Native speakers often stretch sounds, stress certain words, or slightly change their speed to show emotion. These small changes make speech feel natural and human. Learners who practice adding emotion sound more confident and approachable. Another important aspect is stress. Native speakers emphasize key words to show what is important in a sentence. This helps listeners understand the main idea quickly. For example, stressing the word really in I really like it adds enthusiasm, while stressing like changes the focus of the message. Learners who stress every word equally remove this clarity and make their speech harder to follow. When learners consciously practice using emotion, tone, and stress, their English becomes more expressive and natural. Conversations feel smoother. Listeners respond more positively, and communication becomes more effective. Adding emotion to speech transforms English from a robotic performance into a natural and meaningful interaction. Many English learners try to improve their speaking by studying rules and memorizing vocabulary, but they often forget one of the most powerful learning methods: copying native speakers. Children learn their first language by listening and imitating the people around them, and the same principle applies to learning English as a second language. Native speakers provide real examples of how the language is actually used in everyday situations, not how it is described in textbooks. By copying them, learners pick up natural patterns of speech without overthinking. Listening carefully to native speakers helps learners understand rhythm, pronunciation, and sentence flow. Native speakers do not pronounce every word clearly or separately. They connect words, reduce sounds, and speak in chunks. When learners imitate this style, their speech immediately becomes smoother and more natural. Watching movies, TV shows, interviews, or listening to podcasts exposes learners to real-life English, including slang, informal expressions, and natural reactions. Repeating what is heard helps train the mouth and ear together. Imitation also builds confidence. When learners copy full phrases instead of creating sentences word by word, they speak faster and with less hesitation. These ready-made phrases feel safe because they are already proven to sound natural. Over time, learners begin to adjust these phrases slightly to fit new situations, which helps them develop flexibility in speaking. This process is much more effective than trying to speak creatively from the beginning. Another benefit of copying native speakers is improved listening comprehension. The more learners expose themselves to natural speech, the easier it becomes to understand different accents, speeds, and speaking styles. This reduces fear during real conversations. Learners stop panicking when they hear fast English because their ears become familiar with common sounds and patterns. Copying does not mean losing individuality. It means building a strong foundation. Just as musicians copy famous artists before creating their own style, English learners need models to guide them. Through consistent listening and imitation, learners develop a natural accent, better timing, and smoother delivery. This practice turns English into a lived experience rather than a memorized subject, and leads to confident, natural communication. Many English learners struggle not because they lack knowledge, but because they feel nervous and overthink while speaking. Fear of making mistakes causes hesitation, unnatural pauses, and a tense voice. When learners try too hard to be perfect, their speech loses flow and confidence. Native speakers do not stop to analyze grammar while talking. They focus on sharing ideas. Relaxing the mind allows words to come out naturally and helps the speaker sound more fluent and comfortable. Confidence plays a major role in how English sounds to others. Even simple sentences can sound powerful when spoken with confidence, while advanced vocabulary can sound weak when spoken with doubt. Native speakers often make mistakes, restart sentences, or use fillers like and you know. Yet they continue speaking without embarrassment. Learners who accept mistakes as part of communication feel less pressure and speak more freely. This relaxed attitude makes conversations smoother and more enjoyable. Translating in the head is another habit that slows down speech and reduces confidence. Many learners first think in their mother tongue and then convert the sentence into English. This process takes time and increases stress. Native-like speech happens when learners begin to think directly in English, even if the sentences are simple. Using short, familiar expressions helps break the translation habit and allows thoughts to flow naturally into words Being relaxed also helps with pronunciation and tone. Tension in the body and face can affect how sounds are produced, making speech unclear or stiff. When learners breathe normally and speak calmly, their voice sounds clearer and more natural. Smiling slightly while speaking can even change tone and make the speaker sound friendlier. These small physical changes have a big impact on communication. When learners let go of fear, stop chasing perfection, and trust their ability to communicate, English becomes easier and more natural. Confidence grows with practice, and each conversation becomes an opportunity rather than a test. In the end, relaxed and confident English is not about sounding perfect, but about sounding real, and that is what truly makes a speaker unforgettable.